You wake up in the middle of the night. Not fully, just enough to know the room is dark. For a few seconds, you don't move. You stare toward the corner. There's something there. At least, you think there is. A shape, tall enough to be a person, still enough to be waiting. Your eyes try to focus, but the darkness doesn't give you a clear answer, so your brain starts building one. Maybe it's a coat, maybe it's a chair, maybe it's nothing. But your body has already decided to react. Your heart starts beating harder. Your breathing gets shallow. Your ears begin searching the room for sound, and suddenly, the place where you were sleeping peacefully a few minutes ago feels different. The door is still locked. The window's still closed. Your phone is still beside you. You know there's probably nothing in the room, but when the lights are off, knowing isn't always enough. A coat on a chair becomes a person. A sound from the hallway becomes footsteps. A shadow in the corner becomes something watching. And even when you tell yourself you're safe, your body doesn't always believe you. You're not broken, you're not childish, and you're not alone. Humans have feared the dark for as long as humans have been human, but the strange part is the dark itself isn't dangerous. Darkness doesn't bite. Darkness doesn't chase. Darkness doesn't attack. What scares us is what darkness hides, and that difference may explain why this fear is so old, so common, and so hard to fully escape. For most of human history, night wasn't just a time of day, it was a different world. Today, darkness is usually optional. We can press a button and fill a room with light. We can turn a phone screen into a flashlight. We can walk under streetlights, drive with headlights, sleep behind locked doors, and check every strange noise with a camera, a flashlight, or a screen. But for ancient humans, night wasn't something you controlled. Night arrived, and when it came, the world became smaller. The trees, the ground, and even distance itself disappeared. The world that seemed clear during the day became uncertain. And uncertainty is one of the oldest fears in the human brain. Uncertainty just means not knowing what made that sound, not knowing if something moved, not knowing whether the shape in front of you is a rock, a bush, or an animal waiting quietly. The human brain doesn't like those gaps, so it tries to fill them in. And when survival is on the line, the brain would rather be wrong in a safe direction. It's better to mistake a branch for a snake than to mistake a snake for a branch. It's better to jump at nothing than to ignore something real. That may sound dramatic now, but for our ancestors, this kind of mistake could have been the difference between living and dying. Humans are visual animals. We depend heavily on sight. We read faces, judge distance, recognize movement, and understand our surroundings mostly through our eyes. But darkness takes away the sense we trust most. The eye can still work in low light. It has special cells called rods that help us see when there isn't much light. But rod vision is limited. It's good for detecting motion and shapes, but it isn't good for color, fine detail, or sharp edges. That's why the world at night looks gray, blurry, and incomplete. You're not seeing nothing, you're seeing less, and that less is exactly where fear begins. In a dark room, your brain receives incomplete information, so it starts guessing. The problem is that fear changes the guesses. A relaxed brain might see a pile of clothes. A frightened brain might see a crouched figure. A relaxed brain might hear wood settling. A frightened brain might hear someone stepping across the floor. This doesn't mean you're hallucinating. It means your brain is doing what it was designed to do: predict. Prediction is how the brain keeps you alive. It doesn't wait for perfect evidence. It takes small clues and tries to decide what might happen next. In daylight, those clues are clearer. At night, they become weaker, so the brain leans more heavily on imagination, memory, and fear. This is why darkness can feel alive, not because it contains more danger, but because it contains less certainty. And when certainty disappears, the threat system wakes up. The threat system is the part of your mind and body that watches for danger. One important part of that system is the amygdala. The amygdala is a small area deep in the brain that helps detect threats and trigger fear responses. You can think of it like an alarm system. It doesn't make careful arguments, it just reacts. If something seems dangerous, it helps prepare the body before you can fully think it through. Your heart rate can rise, your muscles can tense. Your breathing can change, your attention can narrow. You start listening, you start scanning, you start preparing. This is useful when there's real danger, but the same system can activate when danger is uncertain. That's one reason darkness has such power. It gives the brain very little to work with, and the brain doesn't like empty spaces. So it fills the dark with possibility. This is also why people can feel more easily startled in darkness. A sudden noise in daylight may be annoying. The same noise in a dark room can feel personal. It can feel close. It can feel aimed at you. Your body is already on alert, so the sound hits harder. Researchers have found that people show stronger startle responses in the dark. A startle response is the quick automatic jump your body makes when something sudden happens. It's the flinch before the thought. That matters because fear of the dark isn't just a story we tell ourselves. It shows up in the body. It's physical, it's ancient, and it often begins before logic has time to speak. But fear of the dark isn't only about predators. Predators are part of the story, but they aren't the whole story. The dark also changes sound. During the day, vision dominates. You see where you are. You see what's near you. You see what's moving. At night, hearing becomes more important. A cracked branch, a footstep, a breath, a rustle in the leaves. Sounds become larger when you can't see their source. A small noise with no visible explanation can become more frightening than a loud noise you can identify. This is why the dark is so connected to imagination. The mind doesn't simply record the world, it interprets it. In other words, it tries to explain what things mean, and at night, that explaining can become dangerous. Imagine an ancient group sitting near a fire. Beyond the light, there's forest. Beyond the forest, there may be animals, but the fire creates a circle. Inside the circle, there's warmth, faces, voices, tools, food, and protection. Outside the circle, there's everything else. This may be one of the most important images in human history, a small circle of light surrounded by darkness. Fire did more than keep humans warm. It changed the night. It extended the day. It helped protect people. It allowed groups to stay awake together after sunset. It gave humans a place to gather, talk, remember, warn, teach, and tell stories. Some researchers studying firelight among hunter-gatherer groups have argued that nighttime firelight created a special social space. During the day, conversation often focuses on work, plans, food, and practical needs. Around the fire at night, people may tell stories, talk about distant people, repair relationships, imagine things, and pass along shared knowledge. That's important because the same darkness that scared us may also have helped create storytelling. The night gave humans fear. Fire gave humans a stage. And between those two things, the human imagination grew. This may be why scary stories feel so natural at night. A ghost story around a campfire isn't just entertainment. It's a very old human pattern. People sitting together, light in the center, darkness around the edges, a voice describing what might be out there. Your body listens differently in that setting. A story that feels silly at noon can feel real at midnight because the environment is helping the story. The dark makes the unseen feel possible, and the human brain has always been interested in the unseen. Not just monsters, not just predators, but ancestors, spirits, dreams, death, the unknown. The night has always been where practical fear and deep questions meet. What happens when we sleep? Where do dreams come from? Why do the dead appear in the mind at night? Why does the world feel different after sunset? Before science, before electric light, before cities, the night was one of humanity's greatest mysteries. And even now, after all our progress, part of that mystery remains. This is why children fear the dark so often. Children aren't being dramatic when they're afraid at night. Their brains are still learning what's real, what's safe, and what can be ignored. A dark bedroom asks a child to trust that nothing has changed just because they can't see it. That's not easy. A closet that looks normal during the day becomes unknown at night. The space under the bed becomes invisible. A hallway becomes a tunnel. A normal room loses its familiar edges. Children also have powerful imaginations. They're still building the line between what they picture and what they know. So, darkness gives their imagination room to move. But adults aren't as different from children as we like to think. We may understand more. We may control the light switches. We may know the sounds of our own homes. But the old system is still there. That's why a grown adult can walk through a house at night and suddenly feel watched. That's why people run upstairs from a dark basement. That's why a dark window can feel uncomfortable. During the day, a window shows you the world. At night, it can become a black mirror. You can't see out, but you can imagine something seeing in. Again, the fear isn't the glass, it's the uncertainty. Modern life has removed much of the real danger, but it hasn't removed the ancient reaction. Your body wasn't designed only for the modern bedroom. It carries older settings: forests, caves, open plains, campfires, predators, strangers, storms. Of course, this doesn't mean every fear of darkness is normal or harmless. For some people, fear of the dark can become intense enough to affect sleep, daily life, or mental health. When a fear becomes extreme and hard to control, it can be called a phobia. A phobia is a strong fear that's bigger than the actual danger and can interfere with life. The fear of darkness is sometimes called nyctophobia, but most everyday fear of the dark isn't that extreme. For most people, it's a smaller feeling, a tension or hesitation, a sense that the room is different after the light goes off. And in a strange way, that feeling is evidence of how deeply the past still lives inside us. The modern world changes quickly. The human body changes slowly. Electric lights are new. Smartphones are new. Streetlights are new. But the fear system is old, much older. It didn't evolve for comfort. It evolved for survival. And survival often means paying attention before you have proof. That's the strange truth about fear. Fear isn't always a sign that something's wrong. Sometimes fear is a sign that your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is that it's using old tools in a new world. In the old world, darkness could hide movement, cliffs, snakes, strangers, or enemies. In the modern world, darkness usually hides laundry, furniture, wires, and the corner of a bedroom. But the body doesn't always know the difference right away. It reacts first and explains later. So, when the lights go out and your room changes shape, what you're feeling isn't just fear, it's history, it's biology, it's memory without words. Not personal memory, but human memory, the kind carried in habits, reactions, and instincts. You don't choose to flinch. You don't choose to tense up. You don't choose to listen harder when the room goes dark. Your body chooses before you do. And maybe that's why darkness still matters, because darkness reminds humans that we aren't only modern, we're also ancient. We're creatures that learned to survive by watching the edges of firelight. We're creatures that told stories because the night was long. We're creatures that feared what we couldn't see, because sometimes what we couldn't see was real. Today, most of us don't need to fear the dark the way our ancestors did, but the old reaction remains: a quiet room, a strange sound, a shape in the corner, a feeling that something's there. Most of the time, nothing is, but your brain checks anyway, because for thousands of generations, checking was safer than ignoring. So maybe fear of the dark isn't weakness. Maybe it isn't childish. Maybe it's one of the oldest alarms still ringing inside the human mind. And when you wake up at 2 in the morning, staring into the black shape of your room, maybe your body isn't malfunctioning. Maybe it's remembering not the room you're in now, but the darkness we came from.